So my name's Mike Cox. I'm on the board, and I'm going to do a few board announcements, and then we'll launch into the service. Next Sunday, we'll have our congregational meeting here after the service. It'll be about 11 o'clock. And at that congregational meeting, we'll be voting on new board members, new members of the nominating committee, the budget for next year, and a bylaw change. So hope everybody can attend. We need 30% of the members in order to have a quorum to actually have the meeting. And people online and here through Zoom will account for that. And if you need an absentee ballot, you're not going to be here, you can vote. You can get that by contacting Carol Ann Davidson. So that's next Sunday. And then the Saturday after, June 11th, will be a memorial service for John Peck here at 2 o'clock. Is that right, Reverend Zachary? 2 o'clock here on the June 11th for a memorial service for John Peck. So, as I said, I welcome everybody here to Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Michael Cox. I'm Worship Associate Day alongside our Reverend Zachary. And as you know, this gym is not transformed into our sanctuary by some miracle of faith, but by the many individuals who come together each Sunday to ensure we have a place that we can call home. And thank you for all of the hard work, and you know who you are. I especially want to thank Eva, thank you, not Ava, Eva, for music today, and Robin. Our own Robin and Teska is going to do some music. So thank you, both of you for doing that. Now, for the next 60 minutes or so, allow yourself to forget about all those worries and crises that may be knocking at your door, and try to be present in this moment with your fellow travelers and friends. This is our time to feel safe and reflect on the words, music, and meditations and how they impact our lives and those around us. And before we start, let's pause to acknowledge that members of our congregation occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of Coast Salish tribes. We are grateful guests on these lands and affirm Indigenous sovereignty, both past and present. Now, Cedars is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive community. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in your uniqueness, we welcome you. In all the ways you experience and express gender, in the beauty of who and how you love, we welcome you. With all the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, we welcome you. You're invited to join us today and always with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. Now, Eva's going to lead us in our prelude, Strawberries. Okay, thank you.
Be my mind, don't like to think for myself all the time. Be my soul, look into these eyes like no one before. Be my light, sunrise laughing 'cause we stayed up all night. Be my map, we'll leave with all the treasure we can grab. Be my lake, summer sand and a strawberry milkshake. Be my pride, stay under my skin, don't let me take what is not mine. Be my house, strong and sturdy and far from town. Be my home, think of all the places we'll go. Be my blood, why shoot the moon when it wouldn't be enough? Be my books, head on your shoulder with picture, darling, the best I can. Be my heart, I've got you in the end. I wish I had you from the start.
I'm grateful to be back with all of you this morning after some time away to do some reflection and to refresh myself. And also, as we come together today, I have a sadness in my heart. As many of you have heard, this week, another school shooting took place in our country. As someone who grew up in the time of Columbine, I was in 4th grade when it happened. Events like this have become too common in our country. Too many children, teachers, and others have lost their lives because not enough has been done to keep guns out of hands of people who wish to do harm, of those who, for whatever reason, are not responsible enough to own a firearm. And yet, despite this, we hear many different things happening. People pushing back against any legislation. We hear the former president saying that the only solution to a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. The only solution to a bad person with a gun is strong legislation. And I hope that we can be part of advocating both here locally and nationally, so we can try to do more to make sure that things like this don't continue to happen. So people who go to school don't have to fear that they'll lose their life. And so I offer these words as a reminder of why it is that we come together as our call to worship. May we be reminded of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity, into service of one another. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings existing alone in the world, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe and to community and to each other. May we draw strength from this connection as we continue to do what we can to shape the world. Come, let us worship together. I'll invite us to, if you're not wearing a mask, please put a mask on so we can join together in singing our opening hymn, hymn number 123, found in our hymnals, Spirit of Life.
Robin and Eva, your voice is amazing. Really was. It's one of those things, you just sit there and all of a sudden the voice comes, you go, oh my God. Anyway, thank you very much. So, how many people out here have coached a youth sports team? Anybody coached a youth sports team? Okay, we got some. I did it for many years. Coached my two sons' baseball, soccer, and basketball teams. Every year before we started, I got the kids together and on the parents before each season and had a conversation. And I said, here are the expectations I have for you, the players. Here are the expectations I have for myself and the other coaches. And here are the expectations I have for the parents. And the reason I did that is I saw some pretty bad behavior from kids, but more importantly, from the coaches and the parents. So I said, I'm going to set this standard. I'm Coach Mike. We're going to set a high standard, and we're going to meet that. So these are 11-year-olds, and we're playing basketball this one season, and I got angry at the referees, started yelling at the referees, got a technical foul. And those that aren't familiar with basketball, what happens is then the other team gets a free throw and the ball out of bounds. Well, the other team won. I felt bad. So gathered all the kids and the parents, and I apologized. I said, I made a mistake. I didn't meet the standards that I had set for you and me. I didn't do good. So we went away, and the next week we came to practice. And one of the dads said, can I have a conversation with you? And I said, sure. So he said, I had a conversation with my son, John, and we talked about the game last Saturday. And I asked him, what did he think? And he said, well, Dad, Coach Mike, he made a mistake, didn't he? And his dad said, well, yeah, but, he apologized. And then he said his son thought about it for a while. He said, Dad, sometimes people mess up, don't they? And his dad said, yeah. And the kid thought a little more, John, and said, yeah, Coach Mike messed up, but that's okay. That's okay. And why I tell the story, I know it's a trivial little story, but what it showed to me was this kid was forgiving me. I'd set a standard, I'd missed it, he was forgiving me. And why I raise it is because I'm over the last couple years, I've really become disturbed that we as a society, and even here on Bainbridge Island, don't forgive. It's like we've forgotten that people make mistakes. And this is I've observed, especially for people in high visible professions, elected officials, ministers, teachers, doctors, whatever you want, coaches. And I understand there are some unforgivable things people do, no doubt. And we all have that line. We all have that line. But John's simple phrase, Dad, sometimes people mess up, and that's okay. So I want to dedicate the lighting of our chalice to the hope that we can find in our hearts and find the strength to forgive people.
Hello, all. I'd like to share with you today an adaptation of a exercise that has been written by the minister Erica Hewitt. It's the promise and the practice, repairing our mistakes with love. Quite apt, I might add. So, a girl, Amara, goes up to her friend, Chris, and says, I have broken my bowl I need help with this. I'm feeling upset. Can you help me try and fix it? Chris says, well, I didn't break it. And she says, well, I know you didn't break it, but can you help me fix it anyway? Chris responds, you mean help you fix it even though I didn't break it? I just need you to understand that I'm a good person. I don't go around breaking bowls. Amara says, it's important to me that we figure out how to fix this bowl. It means a lot to me. So Chris throws out some ideas. He says, well, we could try tape. Amara says, no, that won't hold anything in the bowl. Let's try another idea. How about glue? Maybe chewing gum. No, chewing gum's not going to work. Maybe glue. And then Amara brightens up. Wait, what about the art of kintsugi? The art of kintsugi is when you take gold glue and you repair the cracks of the bowl. And it is intended to highlight the mistake, intended to highlight the cracks so they're not missed. Chris says, so what I'm learning is that the point of kintsugi isn't to hide the broken parts, right? Amara says, that's right. The gold is used to remind the user over and over that something was once broken is whole again in a different beauty. Chris says, in a way, that's what happens when other things break, right? Amara responds, what kinds of things are you thinking? Chris says, well, like the bowl, you might break a relationship, a friendship. Sometimes we might hurt each other's feelings. And it's like the thread between two or more people breaks. As Unitarian Universalists, we don't ignore that. We try to rebuild the relationship so it's stronger. Amara fervently says, I agree. The work of healing is all of our jobs, no matter how big or small we are. And when we repair mistakes with love and with our covenant, we remember that our relationships are more beautiful once we have acknowledged the cracks, so we don't forget the work that has been done. And we make a sacred promise to do better in the future, moving along with those cracks. I love this story because I think we should not forget our mistakes, but hold them high and learn to do better. Thank you all.
I have no words of blessing or prayer for us this morning. No deep, profound words of spiritual reflection. Instead, I want to invite us into a moment of silence and to let that silence together hold all of those things which we cannot find words for. May we hold tenderly each other, this community, and those things that remain in the silence of our being. Amen.
Imagine me telling a joke, but here we try. These aren't mine. I stole them. These are you jokes. So I want to see if anybody has an answer. How does a you walk on water? Answer, she waits until winter. Joke 2. What is a Unitarian Universalist? I'm sure you'd all have answers. Someone who believes in life before death. I kind of like that one. And why can't you sing very well in choirs? Because they're always reading ahead to see if they agree with the next verse. And finally, the old light bulb one. How many Unitarians does it take to change a light bulb? Okay, it's a little longer. We choose not to make a statement either in favor or against the need for a light bulb. However, if in your journey you have found that light bulbs work for you, that is wonderful. You are invited to write a poem or compose a modern dance about your personal relationship with your light bulb. So there you go. That's the Unitarian Universalist way. So to continue this sharing of bad jokes, we need to keep the doors open at Cedars, basically. So I'd like to ask everybody to give generously today, and I'll ask ushers if they could come up and pass the baskets around. So thank you very much for your generosity ahead of time.
I've been awake for a while now. You got me feeling like a child now. 'Cause every time I see your bubbly face, I get the tingles in your silly place. It starts in my toes, makes me wrinkle my nose. Wherever it goes, I always know that you make me smile. Please stay for a while now. Just take your time wherever you go. The rain is falling on my window pane, but we are hiding in a safer place. Under the covers, staying dry and warm. You give me feelings that I adore. It starts in my toes, makes me wrinkle my nose. Wherever it goes, I always know that you make me smile. Please stay for a while now. Just take your time wherever you go.
Mike, you took my job. I tell the bad jokes here. When I was in second grade, I saw something that shook me. It wasn't anything violent or gruesome. In fact, looking back, it really wasn't even all that exciting. It was just something that I hadn't seen before. And seeing it challenged a deeply held belief that I didn't know I had until then. I was used to seeing people smoke cigarettes. My mom smoked, and my stepdad smoked, and most of their friends did too, and they didn't hide it. In fact, growing up in a commercial fishing and logging town, I thought that more people in the world smoked cigarettes than not. But teachers? Teachers aren't supposed to smoke. That's against some deeply held rule about the universe that I just assumed was there. I don't know why exactly I assumed it, but I always thought that teachers, the people who taught the classes I went to, were somehow other. They were different than normal people. They were different than my family. And yet, there Mrs. Reuter was, standing outside of the Pine Tree Tavern, smoking a cigarette as my family drove by in our car. I was scandalized. Looking back as an adult, I realized that what I had done in this situation was to place teachers into what an Episcopalian colleague of mine calls a separate ontological category. That is to say that I had created a situation in which I saw Mrs. Reuter as literally being different than a normal person. I had placed her on a pedestal. I had elevated her and her colleagues to some impossibly high and lofty peak. I mentioned that this way of giving language to this situation is something I got from an Episcopalian colleague because I did. It wasn't a term, ontological category, that I used to make distinctions between things other than in philosophy classes up until this point. I had never heard it used to describe a person until Anna Rossi explained it to me. I was in my chaplaincy internship with the San Francisco Night Ministry, and each week we would gather together for a time of reflection in our cohort. There was many theological conversations and just general logistics conversations about how things were going in our internships. And this one particular day, we got into a conversation as a group, and we're talking about the meaning of ordination in our respective traditions. There was, in my cohort, members who were Quaker, Buddhist, Episcopalian, humanists, and myself as a Unitarian Universalist. I don't remember exactly what everyone said. I believe I said something that, for me, ordination is about a community of people recognizing a degree of education you have. And then in recognizing that, agreeing that you're a minister. They vote on it. That's what it means to me. My Quaker friend, who is from an unprogrammed Quaker tradition, which is a tradition that doesn't have ministers, said, "We don't have ordination, but I'm going to seminary and doing this internship because I would like to be a hospital chaplain. But ordination isn't a thing." My Buddhist friend had a complicated example where she said that ordination wasn't something she really felt was necessary at all to do any ministry. I agree with her to some point. But it was the Episcopalians who said something that really stuck out to me. They said something much more complicated. I don't remember verbatim, but it was something about the sacrament of ordination, or as it's called, the sacrament of holy orders, is about transforming something from one category of being to another. Think about it in traditions where communion, they believe in transubstantiation. The bread and wine, literally, in these traditions are seen to become the body and blood. That there is something for the Episcopalians, they believe, in ordination that changes them. Physically changes their matter. Or, to put it another way, in their church, an act of ordination is seen as changing you from a person into a priest. It's different. And it's not just the Episcopalians who believe this. It's common among the Orthodox Church as well as the Catholic Church. Lutherans are where we start sort of dividing along this line. My view of what it means to be a minister runs very counter to what my colleagues in the Episcopal Church believe it means. I don't see myself as being somehow separate. I don't see myself as somehow being any better than anyone in this room. I'm simply a person trying to navigate life like all of you and hopefully somehow find a bit of meaning and companionship along the way. I don't see myself as separate. I don't see myself as being anything other than just a person rooted in humanity. Just don't tell that to my husband. In my estimation, it's this feature that makes holy people so worth revering. Not to say I'm in that category, but it's this rooted in humanity feature that makes them interesting, worth exploring. Not to admire them because they are perfect or better than us, but rather to see that despite all of their human shortcomings, they still are able to achieve great things and bring new insight into the world. They are people with shortcomings and foibles who still somehow manage to glimpse some truth or vision of justice and strive to bring it into the world. Jesus, while preaching a gospel of compassion and justice, was known for his temper. He flipped tables in the temple when the money changers were selling their wares and rebuked his disciples, often going as far as to call them stupid. And Moses, he wasn't exactly a paragon of patience. Who threw those tablets down when he was coming down the mountain? Moses. Who struck a rock so hard with his staff after God told him to tap the rock so it would give them water? He struck it so hard it split in two. Moses. And yet, despite his explosive temper, he still had some pretty good rules about how we should live our life. Don't kill, don't steal, don't lie. Essentially, don't be a jerk. Even the Buddha is said to have had a temper at times. Most notably is a story from one of the sutras where Buddha comes to a monastery where some of his monks were living, and he finds one of the monks quite ill, and he's been left in his own filth and squalor in a cell, no one attending to him. The Buddha comes and tends to the man, helps clean him, provides him a meal, gets his clothes changed, and then summons all of the other monks in the monastery. "Why have you not cared for your brother?" he demanded. And then ordered them all to not let something like this happen again. He was mad. He was upset. Each of these people, despite their close association of what they saw as the holy, were still in their temperaments wholly human, capable of anger, sadness, disappointment, deep compassion, and mistakes. In the book Flunking Sainthood, a year of breaking the Sabbath, forgetting to pray, and still loving my neighbor, author Jana Rice spends a year exploring spiritual practices from a variety of different faith traditions. Rice, while a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints herself, when doing her PhD dissertation, became interested in many of the classic spiritual teachings of other traditions. And so as such, decided to set out on this path of trying to read as many of the works of these holy figures as she could. She writes that wasn't enough, though, for her, so in conjunction with this, she made it a point of committing 1 month segments to trying to do one of the spiritual practices of the teachers she was reading. What she found was that she was really bad at keeping a spiritual practice. She was bad at doing anything regularly. She struggled to find time to meditate. Fasting proved a challenge because her sweet tooth. And the attempt that she made to simplify her life and to spend more time just in contemplation often led her to buying more books, gadgets, and supplies to aid her in this pursuit. Eventually, Rice reaches the conclusion that being a saint is really hard. But I can't help but feel that that's because she is equating sainthood with perfection. But if holy people like Jesus, Moses, and the Buddha can be just as imperfect as you and I, then why would a saint be any different? Saint Simeon the Stylite once climbed to the top of a pole and is said to have lived there for 37 years. According to stories, he strapped himself to the pole to keep himself from falling off while he slept. People would climb up to the pole and bring him food and to consult his wisdom. Why he did this, I don't know. Seems rather silly to me, to climb up to the top of a pole and spend 37 years there. But he got something out of it, and people got something out of it. They got advice, company, or perhaps just their curiosity satisfied to see this man at the top of a pole. There was something about this ridiculous thing that people were able to look the other way at. They still saw good in what he was doing. John Fox, the man credited with founding Quakerism, had a vision and gathered his followers, men and women together, and then they set out riding horses, setting out through towns and villages, proclaiming, "Holy, holy, holy," proclaiming their own holiness in the Quaker tradition. The light of the holy was within them. And while they were doing this, they were completely naked. Even if the delivery was a bit unorthodox, something about it impressed people. Of course, a delivery like that would probably get you on a registry today. St. Lucia, according to legend, plucked out their eyes for God. I'm still not entirely sure why they plucked out their eyes, and I don't advocate for this. But still, people, for some reason, identify her as a saint. There was something I might not agree with, but people saw some good, some wisdom there. Each of these people, while acting in peculiar ways, were respected and continue to shape the religious lives of people today. People in this room, as we talk about them, as we contemplate them. Catholic activist and organizer Dorothy Day once said, "Don't call me a saint. I don't want to be dismissed that easily." I find this quote really ironic, as Dorothy is now considered a servant of God, which is an official title within the Catholic Church that essentially means that you are on the path to becoming a saint. That some petitions have been put forth by bishops, they've been received and approved by the Pope and a Vatican Council, and now a committee is looking into your life, looking for miraculous healings or spiritual apparitions that might have happened. There's all sorts of evidence that these committees can consider, and it's up to them to decide whether these are legitimate miracles or not. But despite not wanting to be a saint, it seems that within my lifetime, Dorothy Day may in fact become a saint. And the reason that Day was put on this path was because of her work for justice while she was alive. Most people know her for her work organizing labor, protesting the draft, fighting nuclear disarmament, among many other things. Dorothy helped establish newspapers that allowed workers to share concerns and develop strategies. She helped feed people and worked to develop educational programs in underserved urban communities. All of these causes are things that I could see myself getting behind 100%. Organized labor, education, food. However, despite all these causes that I hold in common with Day, there are a few that I find a little off-putting. Day was a staunch Catholic, and as such, she believed in the doctrine of papal infallibility, and similarly that my colleagues in the Episcopal Church believed in this separate ontological category. She believed that the Pope somehow was this figure who, because of his position, was able to say things and they couldn't be wrong. And as such, she accepted the Catholic Church's traditional teachings on abortion, access to health care. She believed in what was gender essentialism really embedded into the church. Men do this, women do that. I can assure you that these are things that Dorothy and I would not agree on. I can only imagine that what she would have said about same-sex marriage or gender-affirming therapy. I have a feeling those are things we also wouldn't agree on. Like so many of the other religious leaders I have named, I find in the complexity in the humanity of Dorothy Day. She was a person like any one of us and held a variety of views on many different topics. And while I don't agree with all of them, I do believe that there are things that we can learn from her example. It's not an all or nothing equation. Our goal shouldn't be to agree 100% on everything. Generations of Unitarian Universalists before us have proclaimed flowery things like, we need not think alike to love alike. Or, we're united by the questions, not the answers. The spirit of our tradition is a spirit of civil disagreement. It's a spirit that allows us to navigate and hold conflict. Personally, unlike my Episcopal and Catholic friends, I really don't think that there's anything all that special about me as a minister. I mean, I think I'm funny. I don't think that there's anything all that special about any of the saints that I've considered either. We're all just humans trying to figure things out. Sometimes in the process, we stumble onto something profound and are able to share it. And other times, we make a fool of ourselves by showing our ass to everyone while simultaneously crying, "Holy, holy, holy." Both things can be true at the same time. So, I guess that this is just my really long way to say that it's okay to be a teacher and smoke. But you might want to consider quitting for other reasons. To the glory of life. Us to don our masks again and to join together in singing our closing hymn for the morning, hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
We'll sing this one 3 times through. For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For each other serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. It's our life.
Our service has ended, but our service to the world and one another begins anew. May each of us provide an example to the other of what it means to be human, of what it means to be perfectly imperfect. Amen.
Tucked in my blanket, one for two. Curled up next to my favorite cartoon, hot apple cider. Come home soon. And they're coming home soon. It's the kind of love that feels like a warm breeze in the middle of fall. Holding gloved hand and feeling so right makes me wonder when they're coming. Wonder when they're coming home. It's the kind of love that feels like laying down after a long day out in the cold. Feels like last minute Halloween plans, trick or treating with friends and being happy anyway. Feels like growing up, but it feels like home. Feels like growing up, but it feels like home.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Nice job.